Today, I want to help you to be able to say in yourself and in your mind and believe it that I can help my child. Raising great kids is a privilege and a responsibility. Sometimes our children can't see their own greatness. Sometimes we can't. Other times we can see their greatness but struggle to step up because of our own challenges. We will be discussing the brain science, tools, and techniques that help us raise great kids. Hi, I'm Cynthia Armstrong. I am a general and special education teacher. I homeschooled my children for 5 years, and this is about the things that I have studied and come to learn and understand and apply that has been super beneficial in my life, my children's, and in my students. And I want to share it with you. Today, I want to help you see that you can help your child. I want you to be able to say, I can help my child and truly, have that belief and that hope. Sometimes if our children are super depressed or if they're really angry and acting out, sometimes we get that feeling that we're not able to help them, that we don't have the knowledge or the skills or the things to be able to help our child. And we've sent them to specialists, and the specialists have had us try things, and we're considering medication or on medication or all of these things. And it can feel almost impossible sometimes, or we get that little bit of hope when something works, but then it stops working, and it can be a real struggle. One of the things that I really think that isn't out there a lot and is so helpful in our ability to help our children is to kind of understand the root cause of what's going on. Now, there are different fields. If you were to go to college, you can study in these various fields, and there's a plethora of them. But the fields are often very separated, and there's not a lot of communication between them. And so we take our children to the psychologists, and the psychologists ask questions, and they do all of their little things, and then they say, oh, well, your child has anxiety or depression or oppositional defiant, and they'll start labeling, you've got ADHD, and they start labeling our children with what the problems are. But here's the thing. In another field where the neurologists, they study the brain, and they study all kinds of people, and they've actually discovered what the real problem is. And the psychologists, again, they're putting these labels: the ADHD, the oppositional defiant, the OCD, the PTSD, the anxiety. Like, I know people who've had 13 plus labels attached to them. Some of them multiple at a time, and some of them have just slowly built them up. And they've been treated for these problems that they have. And for many, and I'm not saying it's not helpful or that nobody can get relief from these things, but they're not treating the problem. The neurologists, they're going, just so you know, those things over there, those are symptoms. That's not the problem. The PTSD, the OCD, the ADHD, all the anxiety and depression, those are not the problem. Those are just symptoms of what's happening in the brain. And when you understand the brain and you understand that it works off a neurochemical reward system, and you're actually treating the core problem, or the reason we have the depression, or the reason we have the anxiety, or the reason people consider ADHD a negative thing. And that's beginning to shift, because like we're beginning to understand that ADHD has some really incredible superpowers that those of us who don't have it aren't used to, so we try and suppress them and make them like us. But people with ADHD, have some really incredible superpowers. And if we really looked closely at each of the diagnoses, then we might be able to find some superpowers in them. I'm pretty sure we could if we really looked. And so then when we start treating the problem, or not necessarily treating, and it's not necessarily a problem, but it's just something going on in our brains that we consider that way, then when we start doing that, how much more likely are you to help your child if you're treating the roots than if you're just treating the leaves, right? Or the out, just the symptoms, right? So if we have a fever and we're just taking, something for the fever, but the reason we have a fever is because we have an infection, an ear infection, or an infection of some kind, how likely is that infection to go away if we're just taking something to reduce our fever? It's not likely. We can end up becoming incredibly ill or even dying if all we're doing is trying to treat that fever and not the infection that's causing the fever. And so that's what I really hope that you understand, that there is more information out there, and the neurologists and the psychologists, they're beginning to talk. But if you think of, it takes a couple of decades before what one branch of learning knows and how long it takes it to filter over to the other branch, and then into the education, and then to all the people that are out there and have already graduated. They're still getting information and taking in information to varying degrees, each individual, but it takes a couple of decades. And how old will your child be if it takes a couple of decades to get down into there? And I'm not a psychologist. I am not a neurologist. I am simply a teacher and a mother who has had to go out and find things to help my personal children and my students. And in going out and finding things for them, I have had incredible understanding of myself and have been able to shift and change things that I thought were just, who I was and just the way it's going to be. And I get to deal with it, cope with it. I get to kind of make it have less effect on my children, and I'll just have to be just okay with just how things are. And wow, how miserable was that for me? And what if I do that to the children? What if I just let the children know this is just the way you are? You just have to deal with it. You're always going to have this pain and these symptoms, and that's just the way your life is, but that's okay because we can cope with it. We can make it less painful at times. But how amazing when we understand that symptoms are symptoms, and when we treat the the real reason for those symptoms, when we treat the infection and not the fever, how much healthier can we get? How much better will we feel? How much more energy for ourselves, for our children, or if you work with other children like I do? Wow, it is a powerful thing to understand that there is information out there, that there are things that we can begin to do to treat the root of what's going on. And that, for me, required some learning and some shifting of myself, because as long as I believed, oh, they have depression and anxiety and all we can do is cope with it, that a fear that my child has of being able to go outside because of the insects that are there, or whatever it is, that's so disempowering. And so, okay, we can get to here. But what about if we can take it all the way up? If we can just make it almost like it disappeared so that it no longer makes sense. If having depression no longer makes sense, how likely are we to go there? Because we're taught, oh, it makes sense. I was abused as a child. I had this traumatic experience in a car wreck or with insects. For a good portion of us, those insects are not traumatic. But what say if our experience as a child is just something little that no one else would find traumatic, but that we did? What if we knew how to change that so that it's like it doesn't exist anymore? What would life be like then for our children or for us, rather than just coping or learning strategies to help us not escalate too far down into those things? I guess it wouldn't be escalating if we were going down, but you know what I mean. So go ahead, take a look at my website, www.raisinggreatkids.com, and really come to believe that you can help your child. And remember that children are great by their very natures, and we have that privilege and that responsibility to raise them. Hi friends, Cynthia Armstrong here. Thanks for joining us today. Please make sure that you subscribe to our channel so you can see when new videos come out, and like this one. It is such a responsibility and a challenge to raise great kids, and we are here to help you along that journey to make it as enjoyable and fun and fulfilling as possible. Please check out our website, www.raisinggreatkids.net, and I will leave that in the description below.